In my last video, I talked about how they have been able to track who went to Epstein Island by using their cell phones. A lot of people have already known about this. The mainstream media is not covering it, of course, but it's something I've been following for going on 8 years now. There were military intelligence groups that were talking about Epstein Island, and I talked about that in my last video. They talked about how the visitors to that island were using their phones, going into the tunnels that were there, and they were there, that's a fact, and taking video and pictures of things that were going on in the tunnels. I talked about that in my last video. I have been sent this video that potentially gives us an idea as to what was going on the island, and this jives with other things that have come out as far as Epstein and that island. So let's check this out. This is 4x 4chan warned the internet. Story time with a dead man. Let's check it out.
July 2nd, 2020. A user creates a thread on 4chan's paranormal board, X. The thread is titled, Storytime with a Dead Man. In this thread, he discusses his time working as a security guard and potential trafficker for Jeffrey Epstein. The following story contains graphic and disturbing descriptions, including suicide, assault, and murder.
The stories and information posted here are artistic works of fiction and falsehood. Only a fool would take anything posted here as fact.
Storytime with a dead man. I'm going to kill myself tomorrow, X. I'm also sending 3 packets of copied information to the media. 1 to CNN, 1 to MSNBC, and 1 to Fox News. You all will have to see which one tells the truth about the information that they receive, and which one doesn't. I trust 4chan to do this because of our history of releasing legit info in the face of mass media cover-up. I have been a professional driver/security guard for a circle of very wealthy people for almost 8 years. I started by working the door at a private gentleman's club outside of the DC area. From that job, I was introduced to some employment managers for Jeffrey. Because I had experience as both a cab driver and a bouncer, as well as always overlooking and keeping my mouth shut about the drugs and prostitution that my employers at the club profited from, they thought I'd be a good fit to work the weekends for Mr. Epstein. At first, I didn't do very much. Definitely nothing important. I would run errands mostly and do anything my manager, who reported directly to Mr. Epstein, wanted me to do. So say the gardener calls out sick one day, it would be me mowing the lawn in his place. I was sort of a floating general helper. Inevitably, I ran into Mr. Epstein now and then, and he was always very personable, enthusiastic. I had heard about his original court case and the rumors and everything, but just meeting this guy made me feel like it was all a lie, because he seemed so kind and genuine. I thought he really was just this hotshot money man, like a Bruce Wayne or Tony Stark kind of figure. And I think, ultimately, that's how he wanted us all to see him. His God complex was, to say the least, very developed. Eventually, I was trusted with bigger jobs. I think I got a good reputation because I cleaned one of Mr. Epstein's bedrooms one day. There was, to my dismay, a mixture of shit and on the bed sheets. I dealt with it professionally and I didn't say anything. I knew by then that someone is always watching. There are cameras in almost every single room, save Mr. Epstein's private office and regular bedroom. He had several bedrooms, but one was his favorite, I guess. His main room. I never mentioned it to anyone, but I still got a thank you from my manager for being discreet. One day, I was asked to go pick up a masseuse from a bus station. I didn't ask her age, I knew better. But she couldn't have been older than 16. I got a really bad feeling in my stomach because, at this point, denying Mr. Epstein's tastes would be borderline irrational. I did my job though. I took her to his house, and a few hours later, I took her back to the bus stop. She was crying, and I didn't talk to her about it. A few weeks later, I did it again. Now my manager tells me that Mr. Epstein would like me to take over all of his various pickups and drop-offs. They called it cutie duty. Fucking barf. But it was more than just girls. I would pick up drugs and other assorted packages, most of which I had no idea the contents, but as far as I was concerned, the less I knew, the better. I was getting paid very well for the amount of work I was doing. In a given day, I spend 3, maybe 4 hours doing anything that would be considered work. The rest of the time, I either sat in my car browsing 4chan on my phone, or inside pretending like I was rich and this was my house. For this, I was being paid $75K a year, more than I'd ever even hoped to have made in my whole life. When I took over doing most of the driving, it went up to $115. Every time my job became more illegal, the money would get better. That is his tactic. He knows that people will do just about anything for the right price. I guess I just want people to know, call it a public confession because, well, I'm guilty. I guess I don't care that much because I'm gonna be dead. I've done things I can't forgive myself for, and I think they'll have me killed anyway. So, I'm going to do it on my terms. Anyway, Mr. Epstein is very shrewd. He pays you a lot, but not enough for the shit you have to do. And he tries to find the absolute least amount he can pay to keep you doing it. For me, disgracefully, that was around $150K. I stayed on cutie duty for about 4 months. Then Mr. Epstein took a trip abroad, and he loaned me out to another family. Now, keep in mind, I never met Mitch, and I don't think I even worked for him. I just worked for the family. I reported to an employment manager as usual. I was tasked with driving a young man named Cole around wherever he wanted. Cole was probably 22, and already his license had been suspended for drunk driving. He lived in a huge house out in the middle of nowhere, outside. Man, it was beautiful. If I could have stayed there forever, I would have. I suspect it was a vacation cabin/mansion owned by his parents, but I digress. Every weekend we would drive into the city, he would get shit-faced drunk, find a woman or a prostitute, and I'll take us all back home. Cole was a total piece of shit. If you remember Scumbag Steve, just imagine if Steve's parents were multi-millionaires, if not billionaires, and you get the idea. So one Sunday morning, after a typical Saturday night, I report for duty 8 a.m. sharp, knowing damn well that Cole isn't going to drag his ass out of bed until at least 3 p.m. Here he comes hobbling down the driveway in his socks to my car. He usually texts when he's up, and I come inside and start cleaning up his messes. No text today. He comes over to the car as I'm stepping out. He says, hey buddy, we kinda got a problem, but it's not that big of a deal. Okay, what? Let's see it. We go inside, upstairs to his bedroom. His girl from last night is lying face up, and her open mouth is pulled with vomit. She is most definitely dead. Far as I can tell, she overdosed on whatever combination of prescription drugs that they were doing, then passed out, puked, and suffocated on her own vomit. I'm absolutely flipping my shit, and I've got my phone out dialing 911. Cole slaps it out of my hand and tells me to hold on. He says he can't get in trouble because it'll look bad on his family. I said, Cole, you've already been getting into trouble. He says he knows, just not this kind of trouble. He says I'll get a big bonus if I just deal with it myself. Now, I'm way out here in the middle of nowhere, and the implication from day one of my employment in this circle has been that if I mess up, I might suffer harsh consequences. I know what I did here was wrong. I know that, and I'm so sorry. I asked him what I'm supposed to do. He says, just wait. He gets a different phone out of a drawer and starts making calls. After a few minutes, I'm waiting in the hallway. He's casually pacing around the corpse. He gives me GPS coordinates, for a little spot off of 111 out in the mountains. I'm supposed to wrap her up, take her there, and drop her off. He said there would be guys waiting there to take her. It's a long drive and I don't look forward to it one bit. I wrap her up in his comforter. He stops me. "Bro," he says. "Bro, not that blanket. That's like the softest blanket in the world, dude. No way." And he gets me a different blanket from the closet. Fucking real gentleman, Cole was. He's got an F-150 at the property, used for landscaping work. I put her body in the bed with a tarp on top, and then I fill the rest of the back with landscaping supplies, fertilizer, tools, etc. I tried to make it look really natural and boring. I'm shitting bricks. I can't believe I'm actually doing this. But he's promising me that if I get busted, I'll have the best lawyers money can buy. And I believe him. She's dead already anyway, and it's unlikely he would even get into any real legal trouble. Just bad press. So, what's the difference? The whole time driving, I'm just sweating right through my clothes. I have to stop twice to puke. When I get there, there's a little dirt spot you can pull off into. And sure enough, there's a big black SUV and a Jeep with off-road tires. I'm not about to just assume these are the body people, so I stop and get out and I approach the SUV. The window rolls down and there's a woman who's probably in her 50s and a big guy driving. I don't know what to say, so I'm just kind of like, how's it going? Feeling like a complete fucking idiot. She makes a call and describes me to the person on the phone. Then she puts it down and says, "Who are you looking for? Is it under all that stuff in the bed?" I say, "Yeah, do you need help?" She says, "No, take a break." So I walk into the trees a little bit and smoke a cigarette or two. They've got her out and put her in the Jeep within about 5 minutes. The woman tells me to wait 15 minutes before I leave. Then they pull out and drive away. The Jeep drives further into the woods. I wait maybe 7 minutes and I leave. I got a text later telling me not to ever leave early again. It was from a blocked number. So, when I get back to the house, Cole is sitting at the kitchen table eating a massive bowl of Fruit Loops and watching Love and Hip Hop. This man is like a child, and he hasn't even gotten dressed yet. He asks me to wash his blankets and sheets. I do it. We got really drunk that night, and Cole tells me that this has happened twice before, and it's always fine. He says he's like Scarface. I hate him. The remaining few months go by without incident, and he gets his license back, freeing me at last. Mr. Epstein doesn't need me at the time, but I do get referred as a reliable driver to the bigwigs at who assigned me to work on crew while she promoted, at that time, her 6th and newest album. I never met in person, just in passing now and then, but I found this job to agree with me a lot better than the others. I drove a van stacked with promotional gear from city to city while she toured. A few times, I was sent to pick up Molly and was taught to use test strips to test for purity. If it was not pure, I was supposed to walk away, but it was always pure. There are circles within circles of connections. I believe that there is an entire shadow economy strictly for the rich and famous to get their rocks off collectively. One thing I did learn about her is that she enjoys young females as well. I was sent to pick up 2 young girls and bring them to her hotel room. Of course, I was met outside the door by someone more important than me. This struck me as odd because, as far as I understand, she is not a billionaire like Epstein, but she was even more insulated and protected than he was. I'm sure a lot of that has to do with just personal choices regarding security, but I get the picture that in this world, influence and money both equal power. And her, especially in 2011 and 2012, was highly influential. All I had to do was mention her name, and girls would get in the car. Just like that. Cigarette break, boys. My nerves are so shot. I keep thinking I hear cars pulling up. I'm getting really paranoid. Give me a couple minutes. So the most noteworthy thing that happened while working for is when she had a party to celebrate the end of her tour. Everybody was there. I mean, all of the pop stars were there. And even a few old heads, and some actors. I noticed for sure. Just to name a few. For this party, I was, of course, tasked with getting entertainment. They wanted as young as I could get, and as many as I could get. Ostensibly, they were being hired to be waitstaff and valet drivers. But the plan is to switch it up on them when they actually get there, to give them drugs, money, whatever they need to do, what they wanted them to do, which was essentially to be all expenses paid prostitutes for whoever wanted them. That part, thankfully, was not my job. I'm just a piece of shit who tricked them into going. I picked up 5 young girls from a mall, a couple of teenage boys I found walking around the road, and then I got a hold of an escort company to fill it out and make it an even dozen. The ones from the escort company were not underage, and I was severely chastised for it. My manager basically asked if I ever wanted to work again. I said yes. He said, then act like you've got some goddamn sense. I didn't make this mistake again. After the tour ended, I was just on my own for a month or so. I rented a house near Tulsa and basically isolated the entire time. I was starting to get ideas in my head about going to trade school or something, when I was called back to come to work for Mr. Epstein again.
Wow, this is very, very interesting and very chilling. This is going along with other things that we've heard. So far he has mentioned how he supposedly got into the Epstein circle, that he worked for him. He was originally like a bouncer at a strip club, and that's where he was doing jobs, driving people around, watching, providing security, and they were able to see that he could be trusted. And he said that this is in the DC area, so these guys are maybe connected with other circles in there that then get him hooked up with a security detail that then starts providing security for Washington political families. And if what he is saying is true about a certain politician that ran for president against Obama, this is very, very chilling and very, very interesting. But this sounds correct. Then he goes on so he talks about the political circles that he's doing security for and some of the effed up stuff that's going on. Then he mentions a certain pop star that is from Barbados, and he goes into potentially what her tastes are, and this is all kind of jiving with the P. Diddy stuff that's coming out in court case information now. So this is all very, very, very interesting. Let's continue on and see what else he says here. This kind of, people send me these videos, and this kind of jives with other things that I have heard and seen, and so far this is not sounding crazy. As a matter of fact, all the details that he uses, now that you think about it, the supposed removal of a person's remains, the way they did it was very, very chilling. And he says that they took off and he was there in the woods all by himself, and yet somehow they knew that he left before the 15 minutes, and he got chastised for it, basically letting him know that they can see him, whatever he's doing. This is high-level stuff. This kind of reminds me of the video I did, I Wish I Never Went to This Party, where they seem to have super surveillance techniques where they can either shut people's phones off. It seems to me that they may have tracked his position with the cell phone, or it was either that or satellite stuff. And if this story is true and this happened, and I don't see why it would not be true, again, we're talking about people that have powers, techniques, procedures that are very, very scary. Go check out my video I did on I Wish I Never Went to This Party. Same weird, ominous vibe, same details that this guy uses in his 4chan posts. So let's get back into it here and see what else he has to say.
At this point, I've developed a bad coke habit, of which I had only... At this point, I've developed a bad coke habit, of which I had only been sober a few months to this day. I needed something to make me do it. Coke makes you feel numb in a way that not much else does. And believe me, I've tried just about everything. There are research chemicals that no one has even heard of that get traded around in these circles. When I came back to work for Mr. Epstein on his island, I was going through an 8-ball every day or two. I binge drank at night, but I had to keep focused during the day. The coke wired me up, and the liquor brought me back down. That's the only way, mentally, that I could really cope with what's happening. I was flown to his now infamous island to be one of the regular staff. Essentially, I lived on this island for free, while getting paid to maintain the grounds and keep the buildings up. When Mr. Epstein was there, obviously he would bring his own entertainment, so I didn't even have to do that. I thought, this sounds like a fucking fantastic deal. Island paradise, great wages, not much real work. Count me in. Out of all of my sins, I believe sloth is the most damaging one that I indulge in. I always look for the easy dollar, and that's why I am prey for people like this. Now, first of all, this island is like paradise on Earth. It's always a comfortable temperature. The rains are breathtakingly beautiful, and the architecture and decor of houses are exquisite. Yes, the bathhouse is really creepy. The fake doors are there to confuse flyby surveillance, if anyone was wondering. The other regular staff were hard to get along with. They were all creeps, and I mean capital C fucking creeps. Made me wonder about myself, honestly, that I'm put here with them. They all joked about getting Mr. Epstein's leftovers, and the talk was constantly about when Mr. Epstein was going to visit the island again. When he would bring important people, world leaders, CEOs, and etc. I and most of the staff were kept totally out of sight. We weren't allowed to work in an area unless we knew it was empty. Only his most trusted employees could actually be in the building with him, and his high-powered friends. Sometimes, though, it would just be the family, and things were more relaxed. I passed by his office once, carrying some garbage, when he beckoned me inside. He asked me my name, and I told him. He offered me a seat, I took it. You don't get far in this business by saying no. He began to talk to me. He looked really stressed. He asked me how anything that feels good could be bad. He had a big painting of Oscar Wilde and considered him a personal hero. He began to explain hedonism to me and asked me if I understood. Of course, I said. Who doesn't like fun? Lots of people, he said. Then, he let me go about my duties. I fucked up really bad one evening and entered one of the maintenance sheds to return some tools that I'd been using, and saw the sweaty, pale back of a large man, hunched over, and he had a tattoo of Nixon on his back, and he was wearing a bull's head mask. He was one of the regular staff members' mouth. He turns to me, and I'm just standing in shock, and says quite angrily, "Do you mind?" And I slam the door shut. As I'm closing the door, I get a glimpse of my coworker's face, and he's crying. I googled Nixon back tattoo later and realized that man was who I've never even heard of up to that point. I knew I was in deep shit. The next day and for 2 weeks after, I got all the worst jobs. trash pickup, cleaning toilets, scrubbing his boats. It fucking sucked, but I kept my mouth shut anyway. As far as I understood, my pay had not been cut, so whatever. I'll do the shitty jobs where I'm by myself because, at least, hey, I'm by myself. That was fine with me. OP, if this isn't a LARP, then I have to tell you I wish you the best. And honestly, you did a lot of bad shit. And I hope you recover, since you seem like a good guy. If you are LARPing, then nice job, since I'm entertained and this is a good LARP. I'm not a good guy, but thank you. If this was the movies, the Punisher, or whoever, would rip my spine out of my back. And I'll deserve it. I'm not a good guy. Anyway, things started getting really tense on the island from that point. People started making little comments to me about being nosy, or about minding my own business. I was starting to get worried I'd be branded a troublemaker, which you do not want to be. Things turned very quickly in this business. That's how they've kept a lid on it for so long. Any small mistake, and you're out. Most people are let go with NDAs and the understanding that they will be watched the rest of their lives, which ultimately is how I got out as well. After Epstein died, they cut me loose. I guess they figure since he's dead, nothing I would know would matter anyway. They're probably right, honestly. It probably won't matter anyway. But the rest of my time on that island was pure terror. I was just waiting to be taken away, or worse. It never happened, but I was still really scared. I saw a few of their weird plays that they would do around the bathhouse. Mr. Epstein had a little portable stage he would get set up. He would wear the bullhead that I saw wearing and give a big speech about what he called freedom. He would say this island is the only free place in the whole world, where everyone on it can do whatever they want. Bullshit. Not your employees, not the children you bring here. Total bullshit. Everyone would cheer. They would get up and do a sort of conga line with tiki torches. Really cringy old rich people shit. And go into the bathhouse. There was a trap door on the floor that has not been reported in any of the investigation photos that I've seen, which led to what they call the chamber. And it is essentially a bondage dungeon. I don't know what all happened in there, and I never want to know. I stayed as far away from that bathhouse as I could. So, anyway, eventually I got my reputation for the most part back into good graces, and I was working in the main houses again. One time, I was helping in the kitchen. I don't know if the chef was fucking with me. I hope so. But he was separating what looked to me like the torso of a very young, skinned pig. It had been roasted, and he was chopping it into quarters. The ribs to be served that evening, and the rest broken down for soups and casseroles. I said jokingly that it looked like a little kid. He just gave me this awful dead-eyed look for a second, and said, "Watch it." I worked on that island for about a year. In 2013 to 2014, Mr. Epstein chose me and 2 other trusted employees from the island to come with him to a winter retreat in the Swiss Alps. He owned a small, billionaire, small mind you, cabin, and wanted people he knew could be trusted, because most of the staff would be local hires. Our job on the surface was to help manage all the employees, like supervisors basically. But the unspoken task would be keeping everyone either in the dark or quiet. Mr. Epstein had a real fondness for plump young Swiss blondes, and the Swiss, as he would explain, have a very progressive idea regarding the age of consent. He viewed this as a more relaxed way to do what he does, more casual. Part of the thrill for these people, I think, is in the fact that it is illegal, and they could get in big trouble. When they go to places that are more friendly with the idea of older men having sex, it's to take a break, so to speak. The Alps themselves, though, wow. I mean, wow. I've been all over the United States, and nothing in this country compares to Europe in terms of sheer beauty. Sometimes, early in the morning when I would come out of my cabin and stretch, I would just look at the trees, smell the crisp, clean air, and just for a minute, I'd forget what I've done and what I am doing. When it came back to me, I would have to fight back tears. I want the mountains there to be the last thing I think about before I die. Sorry, I'm taking breaks to peek out my windows like a crackhead. I might actually bail and go find open Wi-Fi somewhere. Maybe in another state. I don't know. I'm just getting more and more paranoid. My lights flickered and I almost shit myself. I think I might get back on the wagon just for tonight and go get some liquor. Be a little patient with me. So I've not been there 3 days when, while me and two from the island are doing bumps of coke off of a butter knife in the lower garage, a boy, maybe 14, skinny, blonde, pale, and naked, comes through the doorway right towards us. He's speaking French, but I think I got the gist of what he was saying. He was asking for help. He looked hysterical. Immediately, my two friends were out of there, and I shouldn't have been far behind. I told him, calm down, it's okay. I'm gonna help you. I just wanted him to feel better. This all took maybe 30 seconds before one of the nannies came in. He looked at her confused, and I get the picture that he was trying to decide if she could be trusted. She couldn't. She shushed him, put her jacket over him, and took his hand. She was speaking French as well, and it sounded like a mother consoling a frightened child. She led him back into the house, and I did not see him again. I never mentioned it to anyone, and nobody ever mentioned it to me. During my last couple of weeks there, I witnessed firsthand the murder of an independent journalist. I don't think he was actually a journalist. I think he had maybe a blog or a YouTube channel, but I had never heard of him and I don't know his name, so I don't think he was anyone with any real connections. He was one of the local hires, a dishwasher, but he was seen with a cell phone out, possibly recording. Me and the other two from the island were asked to go check it out. So we go get the guy and ask him to empty out his pockets. And sure enough, he's got a phone. We told him to unlock it, and he wouldn't. One of the other guys made a call, came back, and slugged him directly in the nose. I think he broke it because there was blood just pouring out, and the guy started screaming. I don't think he'd ever been hit before, but me and the other guy held him down. Fuck it, I'll say their names. It was Daniel and Marcus. Marcus and I were holding him down, and Daniel punched him again and told him to unlock his phone. He complied this time, and sure enough, there were pictures and videos from inside the house. We knew he hadn't sent anything out because only wired connections worked there. I guess they had signal jammers or something, or maybe because it was just so remote, I don't know. Anyway, Daniel makes another call and tells us to take him outside into the woods. I think we're just gonna threaten him and make him sign an NDA, but Daniel took his belt off and strangled him to death. We had to put his body up in an outbuilding because the ground was frozen. We put him through a wood chipper and then burned everything to ash. There were bits of charred bone left over when I swept it all into a trash bag, and I threw it out with the regular garbage. This, above anything else, I feel the most guilty for. After that, if I wasn't in before, I was definitely in now. Me, Marcus, and Daniel, the three fucking stooges from hell. Daniel had been in the military and I think he had a few screws loose because he always had a temper. He became the go-to guy for the really dirty shit. I started working for Mr. Epstein directly after this. He would confide in me sometimes, when he was very high, about how nothing really makes him feel good enough. He told me once that he hasn't felt happy in years. I wish I had the stones to tell him that this life he is living is only bringing him down. For a brief moment, I felt empathy for this man. I think that too was part of his game though. I don't think he has ever had a single genuine feeling in his life outside of sexual gratitude. He never mentioned the journalist to me. It was like it never happened. But we both knew that was the reason that I was now working directly for him. Listen, I think I've said about all I care to right now. I'm going to go get a bottle of something before all the stores close. If this thread is still here in a few hours, I'll answer questions and tell some more stories. You ever see occult stuff on the island? Robes, pentagrams, rituals, that kind of shit? They called them plays and theater, but from my eyes, yeah, I would say the speeches and stuff that I saw looked a lot like rituals. The bull's head mask was scary. I mean, it was a rubber mask for sure, but whoever spoke would wear it all night. After they would come out of the chamber, the masked person would roam the island, and it was generally understood that you are to avoid them at all costs. When they wear the mask, they're like animals. They just wander around from one carnal satisfaction to the next. Food, sex, sometimes violence, whatever. And they could do whatever they want. If they came to you and told you to whatever, you have to do it. It never happened to me, thankfully, but I made sure on those nights to stay out of sight. And that would be OP's final confirmed post. 8 hours after OP's last post on the thread, Ghislaine Maxwell would suddenly be arrested by the FBI and charged with conspiracy, enticing minors to engage in sex, and more. This could easily be a massive coincidence. However, the timing is almost too on point.
Wow, that was pretty raw. Whew, man. Yeah, so people send me these videos and I react to them, obviously. And wow, that is just so much. That's I don't even know what to say. It all sounds real to me. We keep getting glimpses of this world, of these elites and Hollywood, and it's always stories like this, weird stuff. Man, this all rings true to me. You know, if this is true, if this was true and this guy put this stuff out there, they're going to know who it was. And you could kind of sense the dread and just wanting to get this off of his chest before something happened to him. Man, so let's analyze the story. You know, like I said before, it all sounds like it's perfectly true. He explains how he got into the business. He was basically low level at a strip club somewhere, got into security services, and then kept on working his way up into the inner circle of these people. He talks about the island. He talks about the weird stuff that goes on there. He talks about going to Switzerland. And wow. Yeah, so there's some evidence to back up what this guy is saying. So there's a girl named Rachel Chandler that I have talked about in my other videos, and she was involved with Balenciaga. It has been alleged that she was a procurer of models or whatever for things like this for little people. And there for a long time, before 2016, you know, I've been monitoring this for a very long time. She and other people in these higher levels were sending messages back and forth freely on their Instagrams or Twitters or whatever that were really, really weird and ominous. And, she was a procurer, like I said, for Diddy. She's also got pictures of herself with Bill Clinton, Eminem, Epstein, P. Diddy, other stars like Richard Gere. And what I'm getting at is she was back and forth with all of these weird pictures and messages, and she had sent a picture of a security bank of cameras of what looks to be tunnels there from Epstein Island. Here it is right here. So the evidence supports everything he's saying. He's saying that there was a trap door that went down. In my last video, I talked about how it is confirmed that there were tunnels on the island there. There's pictures, old pictures of roads along the mountain there that went into doors, and that was it. And so we know there was a couple of these. We know that there were tunnels inside the island. This was supposed to just be some regular old Caribbean island, but this is like a island that you would find in some James Bond movie. It's got tunnels and people and heads of state, princes, former presidents going to this island. So she, with that picture that she sent, it's kind of famous now. It's been bouncing all over the internet of the security banks. It's really, again, weird and ominous. It's got candles and what looks to be little people in a room. And, so it's been confirmed that is from a security bank of cameras in the island there. So, and I mentioned in my last video that after just as Epstein, the heat was coming on and looked like he was going to get arrested, intelligence groups talked about how he had spent $11 million to get those tunnels demolished. And about 10 days later, there was a 4.9 magnitude earthquake centered on the island there, and part of the island burned. So this all jives. He mentions names. The Romney thing, this isn't the first time that their names have popped up. Now, I was never at any of these places. I don't know anything. All I'm saying is there was a book called Transformation of America, written by Kathy O'Brien, and in it she mentions the Romneys. She mentions George Romney, who was Mitch Romney's father, and he was the governor of Michigan at the time, and she had said that he was involved with a bunch of weird stuff, kind of along the lines of what we're seeing with what this video talks about. Again, I've never been there. I don't know anything, but on this channel, I tell people that they should be their own intelligence analysts. Take snippets of information from here and there to put a intelligence mosaic together. And when we look at this, she mentions the Romneys. She mentions a bunch of weird stuff like this going on with the patriarch of the family, George Romney. And she was not sued. In her book, she mentioned the Romneys, the Bushes, the Clintons. She mentioned a bunch of stars, and we keep seeing that stars are involved with this. She mentioned names like Jimmy Buffett and Chris, I'm trying to think of other names, and she was never sued. So, it seems to me that if she was really, just making this up and saying crazy stuff, that she would get sued, but she never did. And so what I'm saying is, and as an intelligence analyst, as you go through the information and certain names keep popping up and certain situations and themes keep popping up, you have to think that there is smoke. Where there's smoke, there's fire. So all very interesting. He has a lot of detail in this. One detail I found interesting is he said that he went into the office to talk to Epstein. He got called in there, and there was a picture of Oscar Wilde in there. Oscar Wilde, his name keeps coming up. He was a well-known person that, I think he might have even gotten in trouble for. He was a poet from the 1800s, and he was well known for being around little people a lot. I'll just put it that way. So, the little details that are in this thing are very, very striking. So I was not there. I don't know anything about it. I don't know for sure if this is true or not. But I think what's going to happen is more and more of this is going to come out, and people are going to be shocked. And I suspect that there is a ring of truth to this, and more and more and more of this stuff is coming out. So very, very interesting. Like I said, I was sent this by somebody, and I was not ready for that. Man, that was very, very guttural. Wow. So that's it. Tell me what you think. Tell me what you think in the comments below, if you think this is true or not. Again, I was never at any of these places, don't know anything, have had minimal contact with any of this stuff, but the same names and the same situations keep popping up. So we're going to get on out of here. We'll see you on the next Ultra Top Secret. Please like, share, and subscribe.